Hey everyone, it's Tim here, and before we begin today's episode, I just want to acknowledge the coronavirus situation which is affecting all of us around the world right now. I realise that this is a difficult time and you may be feeling anxious, upset, worried, and uncertain about how this will affect both you and your teaching business. In order to stay as current as possible, we'll be releasing new videos and articles regularly on the blog, social media, and YouTube to help you navigate these challenges. We'll share advice about deciding whether to continue teaching in person, how to protect yourself if you do, and how to switch to online lessons if and when the time is right for you. If you're a Top Music Pro member, you already have access to webinars, discussions, and expert online teachers ready to answer questions in the forums, and we've got more workshops and courses on this topic in the pipeline. If you've got any questions, then we've set up a quick voicemail service. You can leave us a voicemail at speakpipe.com/topmusic. That's speakpipe.com/topmusic, or just send us an email, support@topmusic.co. And rest assured, the entire Top Music community is here to help support and guide all our listeners through this challenging period. Keep up the great work, stay positive, and I hope you enjoyed today's episode. Welcome back to the Topcast, your weekly home for music teaching, inspiration, strategies, and support. You're listening to episode number 182, and I'd like to extend a very special welcome to my Top Music Pro teachers. In today's episode, we're hearing from another of our Piano Pivot Live 2020 speakers, the fabulous Nicola Cantan, who travelled all the way from Ireland to join us in Australia, and as expected, blew everyone away. Nicola Cantan is a piano teacher, author, blogger, and creator of imaginative and engaging teaching resources. She loves getting piano students learning through laughter and exploring the diverse world of music making through improvisation, composition, and games. And when I asked her to speak at Piano Pivot Live, I knew, of course, she would be perfect for a presentation about games, given she does so much on the topic of games and shares so many resources on her blog. But I also knew that she'd be great to speak about inclusive teaching and making sure that all our students are engaged and excited in their lessons. And so the presentation you're about to hear is titled Inclusive Piano Teaching Tactics, How to Reach the Students Who Need Music Most. And the premise is that not all children are going to be able to sit on the bench and follow dots going across lines on a page for 30 minutes. But that doesn't mean that they shouldn't get access to music. So let's look at ways to differentiate our teaching so that each and every one of our students can succeed. Now, if you're looking for show notes or a transcript for today, then head to topmusic.co/episode 182. All right, let's get into the presentation. Over to you, Nicola, on the Piano Pivot Live stage.
As Tim said, I'm talking to you about inclusivity, but not specifically about either economic or about just special needs or learning differences, but really in a much broader way that is the basis for why I teach the way that I teach. So I want to start with two truths that I'm hoping you'll agree with me on. The first one is that everyone deserves music. Can we agree on that? Yes. So it doesn't matter how much money they have, it doesn't matter who their parents are, and it shouldn't matter whether they are someone who is suited to a school environment. Music should not be connected to those things. Everyone deserves it. And the second, and I hear this from teachers a lot when I ask them about their goal, is that we're trying to create lifelong musicians. Is that one of your goals as a teacher? Right. So whether that means that they're going to be professional pianists or professional musicians in any capacity, performing in concert halls, or whether maybe it means that they're going to be in a band, maybe play for weddings, stuff like that. Or maybe it just means that they're going to play on a Sunday afternoon for their own enjoyment and for their own relaxation. We want them to have music in their lives in some way. That's what we're aiming for. So if we can agree on these two universal truths for piano teachers, then I want to introduce you to 4 imaginary students. So I want you to imagine that it's January. Oh, it is January. Oh, good. And you're going to start 4 new students in your studio. Okay, so they're all average age beginners, 8 years old. And they come to you, and this is the 4 students. I've given them all impossible to pronounce Irish names just for fun. So we have Kiva, Seamus, Nisha, and Alva. That's how you pronounce those. There's a test on that later, of course. And we'll start with Kiva. Okay, so Kiva comes to you at age 8, as I said. She's starting in January. And at first, she's really impatient to get started. She's so excited about starting lessons. Great. You're off to an amazing start. You get on really well, and she's loving her lessons. It's going fantastic, right? And she absorbs everything really quickly. Kiva seems like a natural. She's doing great. And then progress starts to slow down. Oh dear. Technique issues start to crop up here or there. You know, the fingertips are collapsing, or her wrists are like weirdly low, and you're like, why is she doing that? Where's this coming from? And you inquire about practice a few times because you're starting to get a bit worried, like, what's going on here? But then Mum says, she kind of dodges your questions, and then she says, oh, school's just too busy this term. Maybe next year we'll come back. And we all know that just like when someone says we're going on a break, instead of breaking up, it's a breakup. She's not coming back next term, sorry, but it's not happening. Can anyone recognize that student? Have you had this student? Right. Not named Kiva, probably, but Seamus is next. So Seamus starts at age 8 as well. You have a great first meeting with Seamus's parents, okay? So you're off to a great start. You establish a relationship with them, and they're practicing 5 days a week together. Always his mum or his dad sits with them during practice, and they practice together. Oh, fantastic. This is a dream student. It's going great. He makes slowish but steady progress because he's practicing. So it's going pretty well. But then it gets slower, and it gets slower. And then around level 1-ish, like a preliminary level, you start to do some lateral movements. So you're playing things around the same level, trying to get his reading really established, because it just seems patchy all the time. Some weeks he seems to get it. It clicks, and you think, this is it, he's finally got there. But then he comes back next week, and it's not going so well again. So he sticks around for 2 years, because his parents are really invested in this. But then they decide, it's just not his thing. Listen, he's in all these other sports, he does all these other things, and he's doing great with those, and this just isn't his thing. Maybe he's just not musical, so they quit. So Nisha is next. Hopefully it'll go better, right? Nisha starts at age 8 as well. He makes steady progress, and he's practicing well. He has some ups and downs, a little bit, but it's usually pretty steady, pretty good. And he gets up to like an early intermediate grade 3 level. Okay, so he's doing pretty well. He's in his 4th year of lessons, so we've gotten pretty far along, when practice suddenly starts to disappear. He says he doesn't like it anymore. Where did that come from? The student has been practicing this whole time, and he says, I don't like piano. What? After numerous practice battles at home, they're really doing their best, but they just say, listen, it's not worth it. We can't have these arguments all the time. And so he quits before his 5th year. And year 5, that's when it gets really good. That's such a shame. Quits before he reaches the best repertoire. Okay, so does anyone recognize Nisha? Have you had a Nisha? Yeah? Okay, Alva's the last one. So Alva starts at age 8 as well. Oh my gosh, what a surprise. She seems like a natural, Alva. She just takes to it like a fish to water. It's going great. She practices more and more as time goes on. Instead of it going downhill, it goes up and up. She gets more and more enthusiastic. Awesome. She gets to like a late intermediate, grade 6-ish in most systems level. And she's 15 years old and she's studying for grade 7. So this is a student who's doing really well, right? And then starts to slow down. What happened? She has excuses. You know, one week she said, oh, we have this hockey tournament on. And then she's really academic, so she's studying really hard in school, and she participates in the school play. And she doesn't want to do the grade 7 exam, so you say, fine. You try some Beatles, you try some fun stuff, but it's too late. She quits at 16. So, is there any chance any of them became lifelong musicians? It's very unlikely. Maybe Alva, maybe she'll come back to it later, but I hear from so many adults who have been Alva, who've gotten to that level or higher, they get to grade 8, and they quit. They never play again. That's not what we want. So I'm in all areas like a perpetual 3-year-old. I just keep asking why? Why is this stuff happening? It's maybe an annoying trait, but it comes in useful. So why did they quit? That's really the question here, because if we want to be more inclusive, we have to include everyone and help them to succeed with music like we know that they can. So I'm not going to talk about the economic side of things. You can look into scholarships and helping students pay for or get secondhand instruments in their programs out there for that. So I'm not going to go into that side. I'm only going to tackle the side of when they come to your studio, how can we include them and make sure they succeed? So we're going to look at how we can improve the parent relationships and help them to do better with their students, with their children, and the students who don't do so well in school, particularly those two aspects. So to explain this, and to get to the bottom of it, I want to introduce you to two funnels. Now the first one is irrelevant to this, but it helps explain the idea of a funnel, okay? So we're not talking about marketing, but I'm going to introduce you to the marketing funnel. Has anyone heard this term, marketing funnel? Yeah? Okay, so it is a useful thing for your studio in terms of marketing, but we're going to use it to explain something else. So this is a basic idea of a marketing funnel. There's variants on it, but it basically goes from awareness down to loyal customers. People first hearing of your business down to when they become loyal customers. If you take the example of a hairdresser, they walk past your shop on the street, they know that you exist, great. They get interested in it, and they start to evaluate it. So they're looking at reviews, they're asking their friends if they ever use this particular hairdresser, and then maybe they try you out just for a simple trim or something like that, and then they become a loyal customer if they're right for your style of hairdressing. And all along the way, built into the marketing funnel, is these people leaving. And those people leaving are saying, that's not for me, that's not my hairdresser, that doesn't suit me, it's too trendy, it's not trendy enough, it's this, it's that. And you want that in marketing. You don't want everyone to stick around because they're not going to become loyal customers. In fact, if they're not suited, if it's too trendy for them, you're going to give them a trendy haircut, they're going to hate it, and they're going to go on Facebook and tell everybody how horrible this hairdresser is. So you don't want that. Seth Godin talks about this as people like us do things like this. I love this because it's so simple. Who are people like us, and do they do things like this? And it explains a lot about marketing. People like us do things like this. All those people saying it's not for me, they're not the right people for that business. And that's the way it should be. But the student funnel is different. The student funnel tells a completely different story. And, well, it tells the same story in a way, but it's problematic. So this is my student funnel. The first layer of the student funnel, they come into your studio, and we reach the sieve of parental support. That's the first hurdle they need to get past in our funnel. And we see we're heading for the lifelong musician landing pad. That's where we want them to reach. But this is their first barrier. So these are the students who their parents aren't helping them with practice, or not bringing them to lessons on time, they're quibbling with your policies, whatever. They're not supportive enough. And so some of those students quit. And then we get to the colander of complexity. So this is where it starts to get hard. Their parents are supportive, but it's starting to get difficult. Maybe they have a learning difference. Maybe they're just not suited to our particular style of teaching. For some reason, they don't get it, and it starts to feel too difficult for them. If they get through the colander of complexity, great. It's starting to get easier, but then they reach the basket of boredom. It starts to get a bit dull. Maybe they say, oh, I just don't like it, right? That's another stage they might quit at. And then finally, we have the cool factor filter. And I usually refer to this as the cliff edge of 13 years old. It can be a different age, but basically, with every student, by the time they get to 13, you need to have them playing something that their peers are going to think is cool. Or they are going to quit, almost always, because their peers are the most important thing in their teenage years. And so if it doesn't seem cool to their friends, they're likely going to leave. And so we're left with one lonely student down at the bottom. On our potential lifelong musician landing pad, now, just because she made it all the way there, she still might not play. So that's not very good odds, is it? We want to improve it. Now, we are the people who made it through the student funnel. Because we're here. We became teachers. So who are people like us? In order to widen this funnel, we need to understand that first. So your parents, if I could just get a show of hands, did your parents learn a musical instrument? How many? Okay, that's higher than I was expecting. Okay, that's like 90%. Did your parents listen to classical music in the car, around the house? That's basically everyone, okay? Did your parents take you to see live music of any genre? Yeah, okay, still about 80%. And on the other side of things, did you do fairly well in school? Now, I'm not talking about did you get all A's. Were you reasonably suited to school? You weren't the child who hated it. Yeah, pretty much close to everyone. And were you happy enough to sit still and focus on tasks? You weren't a child that had to move all the time? Yeah, okay, slightly less, but still an overwhelming majority. So we're the lonely sheep. Most people don't answer yes to all of those questions. That's not what happens. I'm sure we all know plenty of people who would have a no to every single one of those. So we're unusual. We're the people who made it through. And if we want to widen this funnel, we need to take a different approach than was taken for us. The other reason we need to widen this funnel, apart from just wanting to create more lifelong musicians and do our jobs better, is that we have new competition. Sam Coates talked about this yesterday, right? With the YouTube videos or these kind of cheap online courses. I see comments about this all the time in Facebook groups. And they say, are we a dying breed? Is this going to take over from us? Is it going to become all online courses? And are we just going to become obsolete? And I don't think that we are. But we need diversity in order to continue. This book is fantastic, Matthew Syed. There's several books out there. It seems to be in the zeitgeist at the moment that people are coming to this conclusion that the more diversity you have in a team of any sort, the better it performs. So you can have all the smartest people, but if they're all from the same school, your team is not very good because they have the same reference and the same information. And we are kind of a team. We're a community, a worldwide community, building more and more. So we need diversity in our team of teachers. We can't all be the same type of people like we are right now, who made it through that system. We need diversity in order to continue making musicians. So for this diversity to happen, we need 3 funnel wideners. First, let's tackle the sieve of parental support. How can we make this part of our studios more inclusive? Because as you just saw, most of us had parents who studied a music instrument. That's how we succeeded. And that's not very fair, and it's not a recipe for success for our industry because we're shrinking all the time then. So we're going to solve Kiva's problem. She was the first one. She quit the fastest. That was the sieve of parental support acting. The real way of solving this problem, the sieve of parental support, is to correct assumptions. I see assumptions all the time from teachers and from parents, and they don't match up, and we're not clear enough, and so it just doesn't gel. The first assumption is that parents know they need a quality practice instrument. Have you ever fallen into this trap of just assuming that they realize this? They do not. And why would they? If they never studied a music instrument, and if their friends didn't when they were growing up, they have no idea. And it's not fair that we assume that they do. So when we look at this image, what do we see? How would you label these two? Toy, right? And piano. That's exactly what I thought you'd say. Yes. Toy versus piano. That's what we see. But that's not what parents see. Well, not all of them anyway. What they might see is this. That's sometimes how it's marketed to them. And also, if you think about it, if they were to send their child to tennis, they would buy like a starter racket, and then they would get a better one when the child got good. That's how most things work, but it doesn't work for piano, right? So we need to educate them on that. We need to teach them about what quality instruments are in order for them to have any chance of their child succeeding with us. The second assumption is that parents know the value of good quality daily practice. Now, we think this is common sense, but it's not. It's learned. This is where our curse of knowledge comes back to bite us. We only know this because we grew up in that system, but they don't. They might think this is the real thing that's going to help their child succeed or fail. And even if they don't voice it, it's often in the back of their minds. It comes out to me in this question I get, or comment I get from prospective new parents. Tell me if you've ever heard this one. They say, oh, we're just going to try it out for a bit. We just want to see if he's musical. Have you ever heard that? It hurts me. I hate it when people say that. But I used to, as a young teacher, just say, all right, okay. And now I pretty much say, well, I can tell you he's musical because he's a human. So if he works hard, we'll get him there. If he doesn't, he won't be talented. But there is this idea out there. It's used all the time that it's talent, right? Mozart was this prodigy, all this stuff. It's nonsense. It's hard work. We all know that. That's why I hate this word. So the third assumption is that parents understand their role in the practice routine. And not just understand it, but feel capable of doing it. And most of them don't if they didn't study music. They feel unqualified. They feel like they need to know music in order to help their child, and they don't. Because they have one very valuable qualification. It's called being an adult, right? That's the real way they can help their child. They are an adult. They can organize their time reasonably well. They can estimate amounts of time. Children cannot do that. And they can read instructions and follow them. So if we are clearer with them about what their role actually is, they'll know that they are qualified. But if we're not, they're just going to see all these crazy dots on a page and go, oh, I can't do this, right? I can't get involved with that. So we need to correct these assumptions. That's how we get people past this sieve of parental support. And it's so basic. It's just about simple, regular, supportive communication. But all three of those are important. Simple, regular, and supportive. Too often, I think we make the mistake of worrying about being condescending, sounding like we're looking down on people. And what we actually come across as is extremely confusing. We use jargon, we say things to sound a bit fancy or whatever we're doing, I don't know. But we come across as super confusing, and we come across as mysterious and a bit elitist, right? That's what actually ends up happening. They feel locked out. They feel like they don't know what's going on. It goes back to that unqualified sense. So we need to make our communication clearer. Stop worrying about being condescending so that we can let people in. New people, new families who don't have music running through their veins, as it were. This is down to two things for me. The first is the first meeting, and I go on about this, so if you've heard me talk about it before, I'm sorry, but it is so important, and it's one of the simplest things that's made the biggest difference in my business and my teaching, is having a meeting with parents before they start. It's so tempting to just start and go to the first lesson. But when you have a meeting with them, it makes a huge difference. You can talk through policies, you can look them in the eye and explain how practice works. And if you don't do that, it leads to so many things down the track. But apart from that, after that, what you need are regular, and I recommend automated, so schedule it in advance so you're not spending your whole time writing emails. It's important that these emails are regular because if they're not, what ends up coming across is that you're just telling them off when something bad happens. If we only email when practice has declined, they just feel like they're being told off. Whereas if we regularly email and let them know what's going on and how they can help this week and the exciting things that are coming up in our studios, all of that, then they feel included and they feel supported so that they can come to us with problems when they happen. The best piano parents are the ones who tell me when they drop their child off, oh, listen, this week just was a mess, right? That's what I want. I want them to be honest. So then I know I'm prepared for how to teach their child that week. But if we don't do that, if we don't establish that right relationship, it doesn't happen. They won't come to us. So simple, regular, and supportive communication. It's easy, it's simple, but it works. Every time you're sending out a message, just ask yourself, are there any hidden assumptions here? And how can I make it clearer? Not, is it clear enough? How can I make it clearer every time? Making your wording as clear as possible and doing it regularly, because some of them they won't read, sorry. Not everyone reads all of their email. Okay, so if we get them through, we've got way more students through, great. We're at the colander of complexity. How do we solve this one? This was Seamus's problem. Remember, Seamus was going slow but steady for 2 years, and then gradually declined, and they just decided, oh, it's not his thing. But it could have been Seamus's thing. He just wasn't that academic, and music doesn't have to be that academic. We can make it easier. And one of the ways that I make it easier is through the use of games, which you saw yesterday. They are so effective in reaching students of all different learning styles if we scaffold them well. So it's all about building that structure so that the student is just stepping along the path and the paving stones are just appearing before them. They're not having to struggle. Yes, music builds resilience, but that's baked into it. It's already going to be hard. We don't need to make it any harder by just giving an explanation. We need to make it as fun as possible so that they move more easily along the path.
Well, I hope you enjoyed that taster of Nicola's fantastic presentation from Piano Pivot Live 2020. It really did get everyone thinking and note-taking, and a lot of what she talks about was illustrated beautifully on the slides. And so remember that if you want to watch the whole thing in HD, multi-cameras, and with the slides embedded so you can see what she's actually talking about, particularly with regard to those funnels and the ways that she engages students and how we should think about the different types of students, then make sure you grab a virtual lounge ticket. And you can do that at pianopivotlive.com/virtual. And you can also check out a video there that will give you a taste of what the event was like so that you'll see what you'll be able to get access to. It's about 10 hours or thereabouts of the best speakers in the world, and you've got the time to watch them over the next year or so. And you also get to download the full delegate playbook in PDF format. So if you want to grab your ticket, price is $129 US. And Top Music Pro members, remember, you get 50% off, and your coupon code is in our academy once you log in. And you guys will be joining about 200 other teachers from around the world enjoying this training. And of course, you'll be able to leave comments and questions as you go under any of our speakers' videos when you access them. So head to pianopivotlive.com/virtual and we'll see you there. Now, next week on the podcast, have you ever wondered whether Instagram could work as free marketing in your studio? Or maybe you already have an account but haven't really seen much success yet? Then you must check out next week's episode when I'll be featuring Ruth Power, who came from New Zealand to speak on the topic of how to attract your dream students through Instagram. I'm Tim Topham, and you've been listening to the Topcast from topmusic.co. See you next time. For more information about this episode and to find out how to enhance your own teaching, visit topmusic.co. You'll find everything you need for your studio, from lesson plans to cheat sheets, quick win teaching ideas, and guides on how to build your teaching business. Plus, you'll be connected to a global community of the world's top music teachers. And when you're ready, join hundreds of other teachers around the world by becoming a Top Music Pro member and get access to all our bonus content and courses, including an extended cut of today's episode. And don't forget to follow topmusic.co on social media and subscribe to this podcast wherever you listen to it. That's all for today. We'll see you in the studio.